BA, what's up, my friend?
Hey Johnny, how's it going?
Doing well, doing well. I hope you enjoyed your off season. Are you getting excited for the snow?
I am. My season was cut short last year, so I'm hoping to have a full season this year.
Absolutely. I'm always so excited to talk to you. This is the time of year when I show a bunch and I get confused. And Bryan Allegretto, the chief forecaster for the Tahoe area and co-founder of OpenSnow, tries to clear it up for me every year. Ladies and gentlemen, the weather, the weather. Bryan Allegretto. BA, so great to have you today. I see you're on a ski resort there. And by the way, everybody, in case you want to ski this winter, Bryan Allegretto is your new best friend because you're going to want to know the weather before you go because you're going to have to book out ahead. Like you said, Bryan, what'd you say? The days of waking up and see what the weather's like is no longer going to exist?
Yeah, the naysayers, the guys who don't believe in weathermen, they always say, "I'll wait and see it when I wake up in the morning, and then I'll go up to the mountain." They don't believe in forecasts. So,
yeah, well, you know, it's funny because this has been your life's passion. Even growing up on the Jersey Shore, you love to sort of watch these nor'easters come in. You were just always fascinated by it, and then you brought your talents to the ski world, moved out to Tahoe to be really in the middle of the deepest POW because this is what you used to do as a kid, didn't you? Take your weather skills and help plan your family vacations around powder days, or help plan trips with your buddies around powder days?
yeah, for sure. It started as a kid. We didn't have much money, so there wasn't a lot of vacations. But my dad worked for the highway authority, the snow plows, so he was in
Uh-huh.
charge of calling in the plows when it was snow. So I'd listen to the NWS forecaster. They were faxing them over back then in the 80s, and planning for snowstorms and scheduling his plows in, and then rushing in when it would start snowing. So I got a bug for chasing powder that way. And then as I got older in high school, got my license. Me and my buddies would chase powder up in New York and Vermont whenever we could skip school to go skiing.
All right. All right. So let's rush people up in snow is I'll show a little sample of your website right here. It's an app essentially. It's also a website. It's the most valuable app I have on my phone, and you can get a free version. I'm showing it to you right now. That will give you a limited amount of access, but will still definitely get you started. You can see these are the resorts. It covers basically resorts all over the world. But if you really want this sort of far out 10-day forecasts for your area, like there's regions, there's Colorado. Obviously, I'm subscribed to Tahoe, and it'll give you kind of a summary of what's going on. But what BA really does well is what OpenSnow does well is they are able to pinpoint certain areas. Like for example, in Tahoe, they can tell us, literally how much snow Squaw is going to get versus Alpine. And these guys have just been right on, and they're BA is just they're actually too honest. They will always tell you this is not 100%. Don't go by this, but but they are more right than they are wrong. And so all of us go heavily by OpenSnow.com, and especially the app is great. Even the ski resorts have just sort of handed over their weather forecasting to guys like BA and OpenSnow. So tell us a little bit about how you guys do it, Bryan. How are you guys predict the weather in these sort of micro areas like around Tahoe?
It's difficult because, when you're in meteorology school, you understand how the weather patterns work, how weather works, and how weather models work. What they don't teach you in meteorology school is how to pinpoint snow levels within 200 feet at a ski resort, or the type of powder that's going to fall. Is it going to be wet snow, dry snow, champagne powder? They don't teach you these microclimates that to forecast. So you have to take what you learned, and then you have to move to the mountain, and you have to try forecasting, and then watch what happens, and then try again, watch what happens. So this will be 14th season for me here, doing it here in Tahoe. So a lot of trial and error, just seeing how the overall weather models when they forecast something, how that ends up translating to where you live and ski.
And so I saw on the site this year that you guys have actually put out your first kind of precipitation prediction, which you guys always strongly footnote with a warning that these are very hard to predict. But since I got you on the screen, let's take a look at what you guys are talking about for forecasting. Here's a shot of Bryan every morning. You see him out there on the slopes in Tahoe, but this is him giving his actual weather forecast. So he'll not only give you a prediction written, but he'll actually get out there and say, hey, this is how much snow is here, doing his research. And of course he has a couple snowboarder kids, so he can't disappoint them. He's up early with his coffee in hand, looking at the different models. But really what everyone wants to know this year is, how much precipitation we're going to get. So let's first start with this most recent model you guys put out. What am I looking at here, Bryan? This is the 3-month outlook for precipitation probability in the U.S. So what does this mean, at least initially?
So mostly what it's doing this far out is looking at what they think the patterns are going to be based on mostly the sea surface temperatures. That controls a lot of the weather pattern during the winter season, and it's the one thing that can predict farther in advance because the ocean warms and cools so much slower than the air. So they can kind of see where the sea surface temperatures are at, where they're headed. Then they look historically, when they've had this similar pattern, what kind of a weather pattern set up those winters, who saw above and below average precipitation. So that's what they're trying to do right now. It's just a lot of it is pulling in historical data and looking at what's going on right now and trying to predict. Okay,
so this little model, basically the white is saying that we're going to be kind of close to normal. Is that what, like, you can't predict it one way, or it's not going to be drier, it's not going to be wetter if we're looking at Northern California right here?
Yeah, so there's a La Nina watch out for this season. They're thinking weak to maybe moderate strength La Nina, which favors the Pacific Northwest and Canada. So they think the main storm track will be coming in, diving out of the Gulf of Alaska right into the Pacific Northwest. So the Pacific Northwest across to the Northern Rockies is expecting a lot of cold and a lot of snow. And what it does is it puts Northern California and Colorado and Utah, where most of us are skiing, right on the edge of above and below average. You can kind of draw a line through the middle of that white zone, and that's kind of where the average dividing line is, and we're right on it. So we've had seasons like 16, 17, and 10, 11 that were enormous La Ninas. The last 10 years biggest seasons were La Nina. And then you have years like 17, 18.
Does that typically come late? Did the La Ninas make for a later snowfall or an earlier snowfall typically?
Typically, you start to actually see a lot of rain or storms and snow show up by the end of October, maybe beginning November. Sometimes you get a little bit of early start in the La Nina. If you remember 16, 17, we started seeing big atmospheric rivers in October right away. So we're definitely be on the lookout in October to see.
Oh yeah, that's right. All the wet stuff. Okay. All right, we're losing you a little bit there.
Now you're back.
You are on cellular. Okay. All right, so we're back with Bryan. He's of course out in the field. So but the other thing that you mentioned, obviously I want to talk about is the La Nina El Nino, because that is obviously with the West Coast, that's what everyone's always talking about. First of all, I got a little graph up here, a little chart. Tell us a little bit, like, what is La Nina? What is El Nino, and what's the difference?
So El Nino is when you see warmer water from across the equator from South America going west along the equator towards the Indian Ocean, and then La Nina, you see colder water. So when you have El Nino, you tend to see a lot more convection and storm activity, a wetter pattern along just north of the equator, and it feeds the jet stream, the subtropical jet stream. And so you tend to see a strong subtropical jet stream that punches into Southern California and gives you a wet winter. Not always, but most of the time. And then in La Nina, you have more suppressed activity along and just north of the equator. So it's not feeding the subtropical jet stream. So usually you see a more active northern branch of the jet stream. And you say the storm track is usually a lot farther north in the Pacific Northwest. So
I see over here in La Nina, the East Coast is getting more precipitation down low. Does that mean the East Coast gets more snow in a La Nina typically, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. You're seeing the convection along the equator to the south of like the mainland that's farther north, and then you're seeing it back over the Indian Ocean north of Australia. And so, a lot of times that's going to feed the jet stream to the north of that, but it's also can cause high pressure just to the north and east of that. So we could have a lot of times you'll see high pressure sit over the eastern or southeastern U.S. But the good news is we may see a lot of activity in the Indian Ocean with the MJO. It's really warm this year. Last year it was cold. So
what's the MGO stand for again?
The Madden-Julian oscillation. So
yes, of course.
It's a shorter range area convection that circles the equator. So where El Nino or La Nina can last the whole season and cause more or less convection, the convection with the active MJO can kind of do the same thing as El Nino as it moves around the equator. You know, it can do the same thing as creating more precipitation and convection along the equator to feed the jet stream further north and create troughs and ridges downstream. So with the MJO is active in the Indian Ocean, which we didn't see last year, a lot of times it'll pump a ridge north of Hawaii and a trough along the west coast. So that's favorable. So trough in the Pacific Northwest in La Nina, and sometimes a deeper trough along the west coast with an active MJO in the Indian Ocean. I'm hoping that's what's going to happen this year, that the storm track is a bit farther south. So we're on the north side of that dividing line between above and below average this season.
Okay. All right. So just to kind of like, decipher all this, it looks like we're in for, at least from what you guys can tell right now, hold on a second. We're in for a possible La Nina. Like, what is this graph saying? This graph is saying that we have a possibility for La Nina probability in where am I looking? December?
Yeah,
January, February.
Yeah, they're saying 50-50 chance. Yeah.
50-50 chance of La Nina?
Yeah, during the heart of winter.
But doesn't look good for El Nino, right?
No, El Nino's gone right now. So we were kind of neutral the last couple of years. I think we started to see a weak El Nino at times last year, but it's pretty neutral the last 2 years. And neutral winters, we tend to be pretty dry. So I'm feeling better going into this season than the last couple seasons. So yeah, I'm not promising 16, 17.
Yeah, because you mentioned the other seasons, but let's look at 2019 here. Oh, sorry. Let's look at 2019. This looks like the chart for precipitation in 2019. So this was a non-La Nina, and it looks like we actually had the probability, at least in Northern California, was that we were going to be drier than normal, right?
Yeah, and we had a lot of warm water close to the coast too, which tends to anchor high pressure in the heart of winter right along the west coast. So we're seeing that warmest water out farther west this year, out north of Hawaii, away from the west coast. So that makes me feel good. 10-11 would be like the all-time dream season. And so every season kind of stands up against that one. That was a cold all year, 100 inches a week. We had like 600 to 800 inches of like pretty much all fluff powder the whole season. And that was a strong La Nina with cold water off the coast. So we're not going all the way there, but we're about halfway there maybe this winter. So maybe more cold storms than not in an average season.
All right, good. And is there any explanation for why we got that big, March? Like out in Tahoe, we have Miracle March. Do you guys, over the years, have you developed an explanation for why we get the Miracle March in Tahoe?
I have my own theories. It seems like
Let's
a lot
hear
of
'em.
weathermen have theories. So when we have that high pressure anchored along the coast, especially with the warm water along the coast, we've seen more times than not the last 7-8 years.
Yeah.
So when it's really cold over the United States in the heart of winter, and warmer over the ocean, we tend to see a bigger pressure difference. And I feel like the ridge just kind of gets locked in along the coast, and we get all the storms bumped up and around us. And then as the continent warms in March and April, and we go into spring, we don't have that big temperature difference, and we don't see the high pressure get locked in. We get shorter wavelengths. And what was causing the dry spell for January and February, that pattern kind of breaks down usually in March. So that seems to happen. When you have dry January and February, you end up with a pretty good March when that pattern breaks down.
So I can think of it like the middle of the country. It creates like a big cylinder blocker that basically keeps these storms off of our coast. So and that's that high pressure bubble that builds over us. And then when that breaks down, it kind of lets the storms come in, type of deal.
No, it's more the temperature difference, and the rising and sinking air. The sinking air over the cold land, and the rising air over the warm water. It's just. I mean, this is just my theory too. There's a lot of very detailed science that goes into this, and there's people that say that warm water near the coast causes a ridge. Some people say the ridge causes the warm water. So there is that chicken and the egg argument. So it's kind of my own theory that when you see a bigger temperature difference between the ocean and the landmass, you tend to get the high pressures to anchor in for long periods of time. And then in the spring, when temperatures kind of equal out a little more, then we don't see that high pressure just anchor there along the coast. It's more progressive pattern, then we start seeing storms again. But last year and 2 years ago, we had an active MJO move across the equator from the Indian Ocean through the Pacific, which helped to really give a boost to the weather pattern right as we went into March. So that helped.
All right, let's get back to this planning issue, because obviously we touched on it in the very beginning. Planning for skiing this year is going to be more critical than ever. There's priority for pass holders, yada, yada, yada. You're really going to need to rely on some kind of forecasting service if you are chasing powder. Now, not everyone will. People will just book their vacation in the heart of winter and hope for the best. But I think most of us are pretty used to trying to at least take a glance at the weather before you go, before you book the trip as far out as you can get, just so you don't get there and the waves are flat, there's no snow, you use whatever models you can. So how should people be thinking about it when they go and sign up for your service and go to OpenSnow? Like, at what point can they start to get some reliability here? Like, if they want to book, obviously you're the Tahoe guy, so let's just focus on that. If they want to book in Tahoe, what's a good strategy for them to start to when could they book something with confidence, and how early? Like, December, November, could they come out for Thanksgiving? Put yourself out on the line here, BA. Come on.
I mean, behind closed doors, I try to plan 7 to 10 days out with my friends. What I'm willing to risk my reputation on is usually a 5-day window. So the forecast models, you see the hurricane maps probably now on the news currently with the hurricanes, and there's a real tight together with all the models, and then it go out 3 days and they all go and fan out because there's so much variability. Every day you go out, the models just diverge further and further of their solutions. So I don't even give a snowfall forecast in my blog until 5 days out. That's when I'll start giving specific forecasts for the ski resorts. 3 days out, if the forecast has been consistent for the last 3 days, and then you're 3 days out, I give it a 70-80% chance at that point. So the problem is the ski resorts want to be giving reservations a week in advance. The first people get first dibs. So I may have to go out and limb a little further this year to 7 days instead of 5 days with my snowfall forecast. But people have to understand, once you get to 7+ days, the accuracy does fall off with the forecast models and my methods. So I'm going to do my best, but I know a lot more eyes this year on the long range forecasting.
Yeah, it's going to be important. Well, and look, I don't think you should be, scared to put yourself out there. It's better than nothing, right? At least they got, you're going to get out there. Maybe you get, you don't get what you expected. So is there a way for you, have you set up, done the spot forecasting like you do 5 to 7 days, like your real powder picking forecast, but give a general range, like your percentage of getting good snow here in these 2 weeks in January is X. Like, if someone does want to take a shot at the best powder, best possibility for powder in January or something like that, can they pick a week in there? Is there a probability? Can they find probabilities for the best week in that, series?
Yeah, I'm doing out usually 2 to 3 weeks in my long range. So I start with patterns. I say this could be the pattern in 2 weeks. I don't talk about storms and snowfall, so I can say it's a bit more conducive pattern. But we're going to come up with all different stuff this year. It's a whole new ball game for us as forecasters, just like the ski resorts with the reservations. So I have all kinds of ideas. I'm talking with the team how we can help people plan better in advance. At least give them something. I think the one thing that people really don't understand that come up here, that don't live up here, is elevation. So you have some ski resorts, like I'm standing at North Star right now, and they have a section that goes all the way down to like 5,800 feet at the bottom in Martis Valley. And then you have ski resorts like Sugar Bowl that start at 7,000 feet, and Mount Rose starts above 8,000. So you have to really pay attention to the elevation forecast, because I give those a week in advance. Every day I fine tune those. And so you can't just look at an app on your phone and say, hey, my app says it's going to snow in 7 days. Let's go skiing. Your app doesn't understand snow levels. So you could get to North Star or Squaw or one of these ski resorts and be at the parking lot and it's pouring rain and you're all upset. Where you could be in the parking lot of a higher resort or be up the top of Funatel at mid-mountain, and that's where you're going to be skiing the whole time anyway, and it could be snowing the whole time. So it's really important to pay attention to the elevation forecast, not just if we're going to get a storm.
Well, absolutely. And I'm not trying to sell OpenSnow here to everyone, but this is what separates this from a normal forecast is, he will, when you read the forecast, he will literally talk about, what elevation the snow consistency is going to be on each mountain. So you can really get an idea of, and they're so detailed from each mountain, and that makes a huge difference. And that's just not something you're going to find in your normal forecast. I was looking for one of your historical. Can I get a history? Can I read an old daily snow?
There's not a fast way. We're working on cataloging the old stuff from past seasons.
Okay. But so you'll just have to trust me on the detail of the forecast, and we're all glued to them. Thanks to you and your team, BA, for at least giving us a shot. I know you guys don't want to be wrong. You don't want to be accused, and there's so many people out there who will throw you under the bus if you're wrong. But I mean, at least it gives us some idea. I think everyone's going to have to chill this season and take a deep breath and maybe ski some ice if they have to, because they're going to be reserving days. They don't know what the weather's going to be. Fair weather snow snobs, beware. COVID has changed the game. You have to just enjoy the conditions you got. But thanks for trying. I appreciate it, Bryan.
Yeah. Jonny, one more thing. I'm pretty sure we're the only ones that do this. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm encouraging other sites and forecasters to do this. But I grade myself after every storm. I say, this is what I said 24 hours before the storm arrived, and here's the total after the storm, whether it's a 1 day or a 3 day storm. And I score myself. I was off 6 inches too high on this ski resort, 5 inches too low on this ski resort. So I give myself a grade after every storm. So there's full transparency on how wrong I am after every storm. And then also one more other thing I don't want to forget for this season that we're developing for you guys for the COVID is overnight snowfall estimators. So you'll hopefully be able to reserve at least 24 hours to 12 hours in advance, not have to wait for snow reporters to show up in the morning. We have a new snowfall estimator tool we're building. And you can wake up at 1 a.m. and see how much it snowed so far at Squall overnight before the snow reporter shows up.
Great.
So
you could potentially be at dinner and you're like, should I have another beer? Like, how much is it going to snow? And you can get a prediction on that. I like that. It's all part of the planning. That's good stuff. Good, nice work. I appreciate it. All right. I hope everyone has a good season. Everyone get the OpenSnow app. That's going to be your first step. Honestly, it's probably the most important thing you do this season. And it's probably the most inexpensive thing you'll buy all season when you start adding up the equipment. So get that on your phone. It works for all regions too. They've got the way they work. They've got professionals like Bryan in each region, and you read their report and they're responsible. Like you can email them and be like, dude, what are you doing? And that's why their credibility is so high, and that's why they're the best. So each region has a different forecaster. Just go to OpenSnow, click on your region. You'll get you get the daily alerts, and it just comes in your inbox. You can look, of course, at the other ones where you're going, but you can at least get your home mountain daily alerts, and it's great stuff. Thanks a lot, BA. Appreciate it. Say hi to your family.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Jonny.
Have a great winter. We'll check in with you later.
Too. Bye. All right, sounds good. Bye.